Benjamin Hardy. In 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or 20, barring fatality, you will become someone. The question to ask yourself is, who will your future self be? That is perhaps the most important question any human can ask themselves. Benjamin Hardy.
Hey everybody, welcome to Next Level Good Vibes Only with Darren and Jessica Salquist.
What's up, everybody? Today we are talking about personality and how it's not permanent.
Yeah.
And working towards creating and developing our future self.
That's right. We're rewriting our personality and we are not fixed. So let's break down that quote.
How do you want to break it down?
Well, I think it's a great quote to encompass what we're talking about today, because we're talking about future self, and we've talked about future self before, but this is a little bit of a different version of future self, because we are really looking at Joe Dispenza and Benjamin Hardy. Then that's the quote that you read was from Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah, and I would even say we are more knowledgeable right now about creating and developing that future self than we were when we were talking about it.
I'm more knowledgeable than I was yesterday.
That's right.
That's right. This is a topic that Darren and I are extremely excited about, and we're really excited to dive into this more. You will definitely be getting more in-depth conversations about your personality, and that we always think that we can't change a person. I've said that before. Well, I can't change their personality. You're right. I can't change it, but I also believe that I can't change my personality. And it's like personalities can change. I do like to have the thought and the belief that if somebody chooses to change their personality, they actually can.
You believed that at one time? That you couldn't change? Well, what do you mean? How long ago?
I believed that I like people weren't capable of changing personalities.
I don't know, but you, did you think at one time that you couldn't change your personality? That this is just who I am?
No.
Did you use that
word?
That
was a Darren thing.
Oh, yeah, that wasn't me. Yeah, for sure.
That was a Darren thing.
Yeah. Brendan, what about you? Have you ever gone that direction to where like, oh, that's just who I am?
Yeah, I mean, once a week when I talk to my therapist, which comes up a lot on this podcast. But yeah, so I would say I do blame that's just who I am. But then I also know that I can change.
Yeah.
I like to talk a lot about mindset and changing my mindset. And so yeah, but yes, I do use that phrase quite a bit.
Well, cool. This might be a podcast you re-listen to. There's going to be a lot about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's definitely how I used to use that language as well. It's like, oh, that's just who I am. And that, that's how I, whatever, And so being very locked in and very fixed into this mindset of I can't change. This is who I've been, who I developed and how I am, versus now stepping into this growth mindset, recognizing that I am the creator of my life. And now going through Joe Dispenza and listening to Benjamin Hardy and their thoughts about actually living from today to create my future.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they talk about in this book. Is I'm going to see if I can say this correctly, that it's not our, great. Oh, go ahead and say something, because let me think about that for a minute.
As you're thinking about that though, I think going over their similarities and differences is going to be a good kind of place to start of Benjamin Hardy and Joe Dispenza, because they have a lot of things that are in common, right? They align where they believe that we are not fixed, which I totally believe that. They believe that your current identity is conditioned. It's conditioned, so therefore it can change. We've conditioned ourselves. Repetition changes personality. Intentional thoughts and behavior can transform your life. And they also believe together that the future version of yourself should influence your present decisions. So who I am going to be in the future is going to determine how I'm going to make a choice now, not my past.
Right.
But now, and I think that's where you were kind of
going. I said it to you in the car so I wouldn't forget, but then of course as soon as I want to say it, like, where'd it go? But I think what Benjamin Hardy talks about, it's the current version of you right now is that you're living from your past. It's like some people think it's their past that created their current version.
Yeah.
But really, when you think about your current version of who you are right now, it's the story that you keep replaying, and the way you replay it is actually creating who you are today. Because whatever happened in the past, it's been shown in research that we tell different variations of the story.
Yeah.
And it can change over time.
Yeah.
It's however we remember it.
Yes.
And so that's what's in our memory banks, and how we're going to replay it, and what we keep replaying makes it stronger and stronger, right? And there might be bits and pieces that we miss, and we emphasize something else. And with that being said, what they talk about is actually let your future self create your present day. So, and that way you're living for your future, because that's what we're going to kind of talk about and highlight today, is that what is that your future self is doing, that you see yourself, who are you becoming, and how can you be that person today?
So let's talk about where people are maybe currently at, because we can really relate to having your past experiences and the past, the past programming and the past things that we are recalling over and over again in our head, the version of our reality. And what we do know about humans is that actual recall of scenarios, situations, experiences are not always 100% correct. I don't know how many people are listening that have shared a story or heard a story, and then 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're like, is that my story? Is that someone else's story? Or did that happen to me? Or, it just becomes so familiar because you've heard the story so much, or you've repeated it. What these guys talk about is like, and I think Benjamin Hardy more so, is like replaying that scenario in your head over and over again, because what you're doing, and Dispenza talks about, you replaying that emotion. You're actually creating that emotion in your conscience, where you are currently now, from something that happened previously. So what I want to make sure people are connecting with is like, hey, do you relate to that? And if you do relate to that, do you also believe, though, that your future version of yourself should be influenced by your present decisions? And I think that's the shift that Darren and I got so excited about. It was like, instead of that emotional cycle or story, or this is how I have been, this is how I was, this is who I am, being able to actually make decisions today based off of how amazing I'm going to be next year. And you said 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in your quote from Benjamin Hardy. So that to me excites me and gives me hope for the future. For me we have some good questions for you at the end and some action items, but one of them has to do with like my decision right now is based off of my future. So what decision would I make?
Yeah.
And if you asked yourself every time you had a decision to make, I bet you, I'll just say personally for me, my decisions may look a little different.
Yeah. When you're thinking about it, definitely I'm thinking a lot about some of those choices that I'm making in this moment of how I see my future self. And if that's how I see myself, some of the choices I'm making right now aren't going to get me there.
Yeah.
Like I know that version of me is not doing things that I'm doing now currently.
Well, give an example.
Well, I had some of the s'mores. She wants me to say it out loud. So I got
plenty of
the
examples.
chocolate s'mores at Costco with caramel and anyways. And so I ended up picking up some of those. And I kind of did it in a sense that eating those in a way is like reminding me, why do I want to give this up? That they're a impulse, they're a craving, and there's something that I can let, I don't want to use the word control me, but entice me to go to this direction that I want to be, and knowing that I'm stronger than that. And so it's in a sense, it was for me when I purchased this week, I already made the commitment. And
that you were going to purchase it.
That I was going to purchase it because I knew that you'd give me a little bit of grief.
You had intention.
I already kind of knew that you would, which is great that you help hold me capable and question some of those things. And I was all ready to deal with that. And I just made the commitment to myself. I want to go through this process to remind me why I want to stop.
Can I ask you a question about it?
Sure.
Every time you grabbed a delicious milk chocolate s'mores, did you, because we're like kind of diving into kind of the personality and the changes in Hardy and Dispenza, did you think about it every time you went to grab one about your future version of you?
What I thought about it some degree, but what I thought about it was not controlling my impulses
Yeah.
and giving into my cravings
Yeah.
and going back 2 or 3 times to go grab one
Yeah.
and knowing that, why am I eating this? It's too late.
Yeah.
Why am I saying yes to this when I know it's not doing me any good? So it's coming to that point where I get to sit and play with it for a moment and remind myself and reflect. And this is real where reflection comes in on the journaling. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? And I look at and I was thinking about last night and this morning, how was our weekend? Our weekend was amazing. Jess and I had a great time, stayed at my parents' lake place, and a couple of nights was Jessica and I, and then my parents came out. But during those nights that we had alone was having certain foods, so reflecting in my journal, looking at what was awesome, the gratitude for everything, and then where could I have done better? And then what would my future self look like, or what would I have looked like had I not had those treats? And I can just see a different version of me. And so that's the part where the stronger I can make that connection with that version of me, that identity, the more capable I am going to be able to live from that place.
Yeah.
But I need to know what that version of me looks like. I need to be able to, and this is something that Benjamin Hardy talks about, is having an imagination in a sense that you can imagine what that might look like.
Yeah.
And I think this is what you and I talked about on the way over here, is also how often do we think about the future version of ourselves versus just or that we're creating and developing that person, versus that we're just living from the present. And really, like with that quote that I attempted a little bit earlier about Benjamin Hardy, what he was talking about is it's our past. It's who we are now of what we think our past is, right? It's how we remember our past that we're living. And if we stay in that present place, is that present, if I keep repeating those same habits, that's what my future is going to look like.
Right.
So I really need to get connected with my future version of myself. What is my future version of myself doing? So then I can start practicing those things now. And that future version means not eating a bag of s'mores.
Right. And so Darren dove more into Benjamin Hardy, and I've been diving into Joe Dispenza, and we've been having some fun conversations. When you shared the example of the s'mores and how s'mores,
This is a fun name too, right? S'mores.
How it made you feel, or the emotion you had, or the experience reflection you had. One of the things that Joe Dispenza talks about is this familiar emotion that becomes conditioned in our body. So he says the body becomes so conditioned to familiar emotions that it almost becomes addicted to them.
Yeah.
And this was a huge aha moment for me. And when you just said that story, I was like, okay, so he talks about stress, frustration, guilt, resentment, worry. The body memorizes these emotional states over time and begins to operate them as their subconscious. And so I was thinking, what if that state of you picking s'mores up, knowing like, I'm going to commit to this. I know Jessica's going to love me so much. She's going to say something, and I know how I'm going to feel, and I'm going to reflect on that every time I take a bite of a s'more.
Yeah.
I believe it makes sense, as again, aha moment for me is that I also know I'm very familiar with addiction. And so I had a big moment when I realized that I could be addicted to emotions. If you create and you do the same thing all the time, it's the same behavior, it's a habit, it's your identity, it's your personality. Even those stressful moments, that chaos, that manic busyness that I am addicted to, but I do not like it at all because I can't be present and I can't pause, and my flow is different, my chi's different, my energy is different, my vibe's different. I realized that. Do you think that you can relate to having maybe possibly an emotional addiction to that experience that you're repeating?
Yeah. And that's, again, we typed some stuff out, right? So Benjamin Hardy comes back from this place of this version of yourself that you identify with that feels familiar and safe.
Yeah.
And
safe.
Familiar and safe. I want to say safe. I don't know. That's a funny word for me to use in that term of food. Although with that being said, it's been something that I've always have been working on well, not always, because I didn't recognize it until probably I got into my 30s, maybe my mid 40s, or maybe 40s is when I started thinking about really eating better. I didn't know what I thought I was eating healthy when I was eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a glass of milk.
And that was safe and familiar to you at that time.
It was safe and familiar, but I'm fortunate enough that I've always been a very active person, and that has probably helped me fight off or keep diabetes away at this current moment that I'm talking to you. Not knowing what my future holds, but obviously I think it's better because I'm not eating like I used to. I'm eating better. It's a better version of myself. And so that's the part of going into when I made that choice to get the s'mores is I go through these areas where it's a farewell, like saying goodbye to it, even though I'll probably have it again maybe sometimes, but at the same time I'm having it to where, do I really need this? Is this something that is going to benefit me? Is this something as I'm eating it, what is it serving? How is this serving me right now? And it's not, right? And so those are the processes, whether it's grieving or whatever it may be.
So it's like an ex-girlfriend or an ex-boyfriend that
No, I would not connect it anyway like this.
Well,
food.
no.
There's an addiction and love for certain sweets.
I know, but you're repeating it to where I get back together and now I'm breaking up.
Well, if it's a bad
I get
relationship,
back together,
yeah. I
I'm
guess if
breaking
you're
up.
thinking about why are you even dating this person, like why
Yeah.
you keep going back to that person when they're not. Yeah, I guess you could say it like
Yeah.
there's a love for
Yeah.
it, and
You break up.
knowing, and so as I was processing this
Yeah.
today, thinking that as I have like 2 or 3 s'mores left in that bag, that I don't need those any longer. Although what I'll stick with right now, what it would look like if I only enjoyed a pastry now and then, like once or twice a week. Like, could I say no to everything else, knowing that that's my one thing I'm going to keep right now, is keep pastries in the game for this moment, but yet give up everything else and know. And I'm saying that out loud. And again, this is where this is going to be great as we talk about that future version of ourselves and our personalities aren't permanent, that this is a podcast that we can come back and look on. And as we've had these conversations around those things that we're looking at giving up, like 1 year ago today, I gave up, I would say beer. I stopped drinking. I don't want to say alcohol because I've had a glass of wine or two since then, 2
But you
glasses
stopped
of wine
drinking
in
beer.
a year.
Yeah.
Although it's just not something I'm not doing any longer.
Yeah. Well, I think this topic in itself, there's a lot to it, and it's really powerful itself because you're rewiring. We want to rewire. And Joe also talks about how that is small steps. We talk about that all the time. I think most authors and people who are trying to help people make change, whether it's personality or a habit or identity, they're talking about small little steps. And that's what it takes to be able to make, subconscious, more conscious change. It's not an autopilot thing that you're just reaching and grabbing for it anymore. You become more aware. Joe talks about it. It's intentional. Like, how are you being intentional? So we make many of our unconscious decisions as we wake up and rehearse the same identity every day. So we're saying, we have these same thoughts, the same emotions, same stories, same excuses, same stress chemistry in itself. And so that's when I was talking about this addiction to emotion, is like, that is somewhat, like Benjamin Hardy said, a comfort and a safe place, because that's what we go back to. That's where our baseline is. But as we, evolve, because they both talk about evolution, we evolve, that we then have a new baseline. Then we have a new baseline, So one thing I want to point out too is the differences in their focus is that Joe Dispenza talks about neuroscience and big on meditation, emotional energy, subconscious programming, and changing the body and the brain through elevated emotional states and mental rehearsal. And Benjamin Hardy focuses more on psychology, decision-making, narrative identity, future self-vision, commitment, environment, and behavioral transformation. And 2 of the things that they talk about is Joe Dispenza talks about how do you neurologically and emotionally become someone new? And Hardy asks, how do you strategically and intentionally build your future identity? So there's this neuroscience, emotional, like, how do you become something new, which I dig, and I love that part of it, because I feel like we have these energy fields, and there's this wonderful neuroscience piece of it. And then Hardy says, strategically and intentionally, how do you build your future identity? And that's by intention and strategy.
Yeah. And this is a cool thing is we've talked about intentional intention, right? When it comes to certain things. And also Benjamin Hardy talks about deliberate practice and that deliberate practice of working on those habits, those new habits that you're working on creating for yourself to build that better version of you, that future version of you, that, right? That thing that I say a lot in a lot of my posts about what is that thing that you're doing that your future self is going to thank you for, right? And so one of the things I wanted to just make sure that I shared is because this also gave me as a reflection part on this. And again, knowing that I already said yes to the s'mores and not beating myself up about it. And then after the weekend, I get to look at my body. It's like, oh, I know here. I think I see certain things in my, like, oh, there's those s'mores I ate. But not beating myself up in a sense of shame, but just as a reminder, like, oh man, see, this is why we don't want to do this stuff, right? You and I just got done doing 30 days of carnivore. I got down. I thought I really was happy with the results that I obtained during that time, and then kind of going into some of these habits, not all 100% bad, but using that word not 100% justifying, where I allowed some things back in. Where Jess has been very more bright lines with her decisions and following a protocol. Where I just went back to, I didn't just go back. I use the word just again. I went back to some things. I allowed some things back in.
Comfort.
Easier, like the s'mores. So
familiar.
anyways, the thing I wanted to say was,
yeah, please.
There was a moment that Jessica, when I had one of the s'mores again, maybe my fourth or fifth one, that you asked, you said something, and it's when instead of getting defensive, where I would get defensive when, do you really get those s'mores? Or like whenever I ask for something, she'll maybe give me a little bit of a hard time. But I now see that as, or I got to reflect on it the other night, it's her way of showing love.
Absolutely.
Right, that when she doesn't maybe agree or maybe gets to say a few words and then I can get defensive because it's more about me than it is about her, where I get defensive because I know I don't like to use the word should. So this is something I know that is not good for me and I'm eating it anyways. And then Jessica questions me about it, allows me to get defensive. I can look at it that way, or I finally got to look at it in a sense of, this is how Jessica just wants me to be around, right? She doesn't want me to eat this shitty food and potentially have a health crisis. Number one, not that she would be worried about taking care of me. But,
a little bit.
But with that being
I've
said,
been
knowing
a caregiver
that
before.
we have goals for our future, right? We want to live in Europe for 3 months out of the year. We want to travel. We want to do the Dolomites. We want to be able to do all these things as we level up in life. And the way to do that is developing that future version of ourselves now. That's that healthy living, and that how do we see ourselves living in the future, and making sure that we give ourselves the best chance. So I just wanted to share that because I did share that with you the other night, but I wanted to reflect on that also, that I know you're not, I used to take it as defensive and allowing myself now to see, oh, that's just you showing your love for me, and really why are you doing it is to keep me around a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah. It's curious. I'm usually curious. Like, is that what you really want?
Yeah.
Is that the most important thing to you right now?
How many is that for you? You going to have another one? You know what time it is?
No. Well, I do say sometimes, isn't it late?
Yeah. So, not too late.
Not too late.
Not in China.
I think that's a good segue into the neurons that fire together. Wire together. Yeah. So when Joe talks about how the brain is consistently wiring and rewiring itself through repetition, that's what he's talking about, how change occurs. And that's where hard work comes in, right? Before transformation, ask yourself, can you think greater than your environment? Mm-hmm. Can you think more, something bigger? Can you feel greater than your circumstances? Can you become someone new before the evidence appears? Darren said, we did carnivore and we had great success, and I've been sticking pretty much to it. I have repeatedly, since when did I graduate high school? 2020. When did 1994. Oh my gosh. So since 1998.
1900s.
Yeah, I know, right? Since 1998, I have been working on healing my gut. That's a long time ago. Yeah. So my gosh, I mean, people, if you're out there and you're like 20 years have gone by or more, and you're repeating some of the same things, you've made some small changes, just know that I guarantee you've made some changes. But there is a part of me that I get stronger every single time because I believe my choices today are my future version, and I want to be comfortable. And it's not my exterior completely of what I'm worried about. It's how I feel. I don't want to feel that way anymore. So those are important things is I'm thinking greater than my current environment, and can I become someone new before the evidence appears? I don't want to continue, and I'm not saying I'm going to be perfect at this, but I don't want to continue getting to that place where I feel cruddy and I spend a lot of time in the bathroom, or I feel sick to my stomach, or I'm getting
Gassy.
cramps. Yeah, it happens sometimes. So I don't want to wait till that evidence appears before I make a change, before I'm intentional. And that's the part of, I want my neurons to fire together in a way that I want them wired for my future. So that also takes my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions, because I want to strengthen my identity of who I am, yes, now, but who I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I want to look back and go, and there are times, right? I know there's times you look back and go, I'm so glad I made that decision.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I washed the dishes last night so I don't have to do them today. I mean, small things too, small, big, all of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think as you're saying this and I'm getting more and more deeper into this, is like, if you own a high-powered vehicle or, a sports car or something that you have purchased that means, if there's a hobby or a habit or anything that you really enjoy, or that you do, that you put a lot of effort into it and you do your best, why don't we do that for our bodies? Like, right, this is the only body we get.
Yeah.
It's what we put in our bodies that actually fuels our mind or helps the hormones, and our body adapts to that. And so it's really about, how do we make sure that we're firing on all cells and get everything wired correctly when we're not putting the right foods into it. And this is just, again, same thing as I'm eating the s'mores and the things with sugar and stuff, and that my body's like, what are you doing right now? Like, what is going on? And they're having to react, and my body's reacting to that. And so this is the part where I'm working on myself, is as the reason I stopped kind of with alcohol is, why am I intentionally putting poison in my body and making my body do the work to fend it off? And why wouldn't I give my body the fuel that it needs to be the most efficient and effective device that it's the only device I'm ever going to get.
Yeah.
To keep it moving and doing all the things that I need to do. Why am I going to the gym, right? Why are we doing meditation? Why are we getting in depth in all these different books and working on our knowledge? And this is one of the things I'll share real quick because it's on my mind. If you're liking this podcast and this information, check in our bio and the link in here, Philosopher's Notes. We'll have a link to purchase Philosopher's Notes for $99, which is a lifetime membership. And you'll get access to over 750 books, on the way to over 1,000 different books. And you also catch some different things in there that you can work on self-development. And it's also something that I'm going to be launching here pretty soon called the Growth Lab, utilizing these Philosopher's Notes, where it gives an opportunity to hopefully create a community of like-minded individuals that are working on these things, and you get to share these ideas.
Yeah.
And it's going to be monthly.
You'll also be able to find a link on our website at nextleveltransformationalcoaching.com.
Yeah. And so this is something to kind of look out for as we're moving forward, if you're liking these types of things and of interest. And the app alone is, I mean, I can't believe what a great
platform.
price this is, that gives you access to, again, all these different books. I mean, Benjamin Hardy,
Joe Dispenza.
Joe Dispenza,
So many amazing.
James Clear.
Yeah.
I mean, you just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
So just something to look into. But as we go into this, one of the quotes that I wanted to kind of share also is by George Bernard Shaw, is life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And this is where, again, as we move towards the future, looking at who do I want to be, not just arriving there, but actually who do I want to become? And so what am I doing in my present moment to help craft that? And this is where Benjamin Hardy reflects on Viktor Frankl's quote where he talks about, Viktor Frankl mentioned in his book that imagine that you are looking back on like you're at the end of life and you're looking back on your life right now and looking at all the things that you've done. And here you are in this moment. And let's say, I'm going to come back to the s'mores. And then I'm looking at this part of my life where I'm eating s'mores. I'm like, that's that time where I got to really focus on myself and like check in, like, why am I doing this? And where looking at myself and how I got to journal and write down the things that I was experiencing and then understanding my why. And that was that moment where I made the change to stop eating that and start working on creating the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And those are the things where we get to look back at, no matter what's going on in our life in this present moment. When we have a hiccup or we trip, we fall, we skin our knee, we get back up. But knowing that this is the part of the life. This is where we get to learn from it. And you can either be the victim of it or you can be the hero of that story. You're creating it. You get to decide how you shape your life around that and how are you playing it. Is it going to be a liability in your life or are you going to change it to be an asset in your life?
Yeah. No, I like that. It reminds me of, because we're both sharing kind of Dispenza, Hardy stuff. Joe Dispenza says, "Your person." I know. Well, it's good because I think it's, and this is even better. No, just how aligned they are. I mean, they have some differences, but he says your personality creates your personal reality.
Yeah.
And if you think of the word personality, it has personal reality in it, basically. So your personality creates your personal reality, as you were saying, finding self versus creating self. And my personal reality is my personality. Mm-hmm. So like, how do we look at that? The two together, Hardy and Dispenza, it's powerful. Yeah. They create a powerful combination. They have vision plus embodiment. There's mindset plus behavior. There's emotion plus commitment and future thinking plus daily action. And that's what is really exciting about this kind of coordination, complementation, partnering is that we're taking two authors and kind of, bringing them in the face-off of how amazing the application of their philosophies and learning and teaching together. Yeah. Because it's empowering. It's powerful. So
yeah, and that's what's super awesome. I want to come back to the Philosopher's Notes by having that app. When Brian Johnson goes through these books, he shares all the different other books that are related to this topic. So you get this platform and all this great information, not just one book, but a multitude of books. And so that's what's kind of cool about that as well, is if you're on this, whatever journey that you're on in your self-development. Yeah. As we close this out, because we got a couple questions and action items that we wanted to share here at the end to give you guys a little bit of chance to move forward. Is there anything we want to close with?
The last thing I'm going to say before the reflection action items is because your future may not depend on only your goals, it may depend on your identity. Mm-hmm. So we talk a lot about goals, but it may depend on your identity and those repeated actions. It's not just one huge giant breakthrough. It's a lot of little ones. Yeah.
Two things I wanted to bring up real quick too, that here's a reminder. One is that this is where he talks about our goals drive our identity, which drive our behaviors, right? So we know our goals, and then who do we need to be to obtain that goal? So creating that identity. Yeah. And then identity is going to drive those behaviors, which then creates ultimately your personality. Yeah. And there again, that's where personality isn't permanent. And if you take a personality test, you could take it again 6 months or a year later and it's going to change because you're a different person. There might be some things that are similar, but there might be also a couple things that have changed because you have changed, right? That's where hopefully we're not the same person that we were 10 years ago, right? I would say we've both changed and moved in those directions.
Thank goodness.
And one of the things that's kind of cool on one of these podcasts or whatever I was watching with Benjamin Hardy being interviewed, he shared one of the ideas that I think he talked about in one of his books, maybe 2 times, 10 times, whatever, 10x, is that the Mr. Beast, you know who Mr. Beast is, right? I guess he's one of the most famous guys on YouTube. I've only seen him because of all the different things he's created and all the, like he's worth, how much money he's made on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But he did some videos of when he was young, when he was like 15 years old, that he did a video that he released to himself 1 year. And then he did another video. So he's talking to his future self and saying, hey, at this time, I hope to have 1 million viewers and you're doing this and doing that. And then he released another one, like 2 years or whatever it was. It was certain processes where he's talking to his future self. Yeah. And then now they're being released as now that future is actually here. and you get to see what he envisioned for himself. And you can see how it came to fruition, even double that. 'Cause like, I don't know, he's got like 42 million followers or something on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
And so you can just see that power of, number one, vision. What do you envision for yourself? And then knowing, being connected to that future self, what is that future version of you doing today that's making that possible? And that's how you start taking action and now. And so just a couple thoughts on that as we close this out, man. There's so many things that we can talk about on this topic. And that's kind of why I'm excited to start this growth lab, share certain ideas from Brian Johnson's Philosopher's Notes, stemming all from the great organization Heroic, and utilizing this as a tool to, again, accomplish that mission of helping 51% of humanity flourish by 2051. And this is a big part why Jessica and I do this. It's one, to see ourselves grow and to live this great future together and be a witness to each other's life that we're experiencing together. But also, how do we possibly have an impact on others and just share what we're doing that can possibly influence others, just to make that one little change. And then you could be that catalyst to somebody else.
That's right. All right, let's go through some reflection questions that you can journal about.
So you got these. I'm going to just listen.
Okay, that sounds great. And then a couple action items. So the questions for reflections are, number one, what emotional state or story do I rehearse most often? And you can pause and write that question down. Number two, what part of my personality feels conditioned rather than authentic? Number three, what would my future self thank me for starting today? And number four, am I living from the past or am I creating from my future? Yeah, I like that one a lot.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Out of the four, that would be.
Am I living from my past or creating from my future? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Your action items. We've got 2 action items for you. There were some journaling questions and reflection. We highly recommend. That's how you get to know yourself a little better. But your action items, choose one elevated emotion to practice intentionally this week. Some ideas can be gratitude, peace, courage, joy, compassion, or confidence. So give those some practice, a little run through. And the second one is write this question somewhere that's visible. Maybe, I use the whiteboard markers on the mirror. I've seen that. That works really good. Or write a piece of paper, stick it somewhere, you're going to see it. It says, the question is, what would the future version of me choose right now? And I think any decision we make, that's what I was referring to earlier, is what if we asked ourselves that question every time there was a decision? Maybe not every single time, but when you have
something
decisions,
you want to change, and you're like, I could probably make it. Is this the
if
choice
you're
I
pausing,
want to make? Do I want to eat the s'mores right now?
If you're pausing on something, it's like, what would the future version of me choose right now? S'mores. So, and then finally remember that your personality may have created your current reality, but your awareness gives you the power to create a new one. I would love if anybody gets the opportunity to, even in a review on the podcast, or find us on social media, or send us an email to tell us what topics or how you'd like us to dive deeper into some of these topics and how they would relate to you. I like that. I would love to know that. If you reach out to us and let us know that, we'd be happy to do that.
All right. I know I said I was going to listen, but I want to toss a question out there for a journal prompt.
After.
All
No,
right.
just joking. You do that, and then I'm just going to remind them about our meditation.
One little journal prompt is how, as you're doing this in the evening, this would be closing out your routine in the evening. How are you different this evening version of yourself than the morning version of yourself?
From the evening to the morning.
Yeah. So what did you learn? So just taking a moment to reflect on your day and recognizing maybe something that you made a choice around that you were not going to work out.
Why don't you tell me that?
And then instead you decide, you know what? I'm going to do 5 push-ups.
What's your answer for that?
Today?
Yeah.
What did I do?
I know. I thought you'd had an answer since you came up with a question.
Well, it's not my journal time yet, so I haven't had that. There's still something I can do. But today would be, Let's see, you got to put me on the spot. Let me think. What did I do?
Well, I'll tell you mine while you think about yours. I think the difference from morning to evening of my future version of me is you and I drove here together. We don't always get a carpool to our podcast, and we had an intentional, pleasant conversation about our topic today, but that's a future version of me that I like our calm presence and our excitement that we get to share together. And this morning when I woke up, I wasn't feeling great and I was tired. I did not go to the gym. I thought you were calling me out on that earlier.
No. I figured you didn't feel well. That's why you weren't going.
And I decided to take a morning off, and which is also a good thing for me.
Yeah. So that's awesome that you did that. For me, I think I just, made some choices around my meals. Like when I got home, I went home intentionally so I could I was over at the house, checking on the house, right, with that appointment. And I was headed towards Huckleberry's to maybe get a pastry. And I had enough time to say, no. You can just go home. Go home.
Just go home. We have free food there.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah. All right. We'll check out the podcast we recorded right before this called Becoming Your Future Self. It really aligns with our topics today. And thank you, Joe Dispenza. And thank you, Benjamin
check out that
Hardy.
link. Check out the link for the Philosopher's Notes. And we'll see. We'll see what happens over there. But what you get to do is take your life to the next level with
good vibes only.
Peace. Congratulations, and I want to say thank you for sticking with this and listening to this topic. But I want to leave you for some actionable steps that you can take immediately after listening to this podcast or once you get into your home if you are driving. I want you to think about writing down your answers to these focused questions. What is that one thing that you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And then I'd like for you to schedule a time for that primary task that you just wrote down. So those are your actionable steps. Thank you.